speaker tonight is a good friend of Linda and me, Diane Alexander and her husband, Bruce, have been wonderful friends that we treasure greatly. Diane grew up in Cincinnati, graduated from Ohio State. Uh, she's trying to figure out, with all this mind science understanding she has, what happened to her Buckeyes this season. But other than that, she's made a full recovery now that all the season is over. We could say a lot about Diane and her background. I think Eloisa is going to give you a wider perspective on her history, but Diane's a professor of mind science at Franklin University in Columbus. Spent a lifetime trying to figure out how we all think and why. And so it's always interesting when we get together. Linda and I come to her and say, we've got this problem. What's wrong with this person? And she tells us right away, it's really us. So I think one of the greatest things I can say is that she's received meritorious teaching awards from Franklin, and the nicest award I think she's received has been as a result of her students making her the Professor of the Year, which I think is a supreme honor. So I know you'll enjoy listening to what Diane has to bring to us. She's spoken all over the U.S. and Europe, and she's been a speaker in our church, and wherever she's been, she's done a wonderful job. So, Diane, welcome, and thank you for coming to my Rotary Club.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd just like to say hello to Ken, to Marie, and to, no, okay. Those are oh, and Ray. Ray has also joined us. Welcome, fellow members. Thank you. So, and thank you, Diane, for having accepted to be our speaker for tonight. I will move on to read her bio. Diane is an internationally respected trainer, consultant, and speaker who has dedicated her career to helping individuals and organizations better understand how the brain works and how that understanding can be used to improve leadership, performance, and personal effectiveness. As president of the MindWorks Incorporated, Diane leads an organization focused on translating the latest research in neuroscience and cognitive science into practical, easy-to-use tools. Her work helps people strengthen skills essential to leadership and service, including decision-making, creativity, problem-solving, emotional intelligence, resilience, and adaptability. She brings a unique interdisciplinary background to her work, holding a bachelor's degree in education, a master's degree in psychology, and an MBA, along with extensive postgraduate study in neuroscience and neurolinguistics. This combination of education, psychology, business, and brain science allows her to connect scientific research with real-world application in ways that are both engaging and immediately useful. For more than 2 decades, Diane has delivered programs for corporate leaders, government agencies, professional associations, and educational institutions across the United States and international. Her presentations are known for being highly engaging, practical, and inspiring, leading audiences with tools they can apply immediately in leadership, service, and everyday life. We are delighted to have Diane as our speaker this evening, and look forward to learning how we can all use our minds more effectively to lead better, serve more fully, and make an even greater impact in our communities. And we are happy, Diane, that this meeting and your talk is being recorded, and that way we upload it to our webpage and other Rotarians can watch it later. So We're all ears. Thank you, Diane.
Well, thank you, Eloisa. I appreciate that. Okay. Thank you all for coming tonight. And we're going to just play with your brains a little bit. And if we could have the first slides. Okay. So if you think of the brain a little bit like your car, you know your car is extremely complex and extremely powerful. We know that your brain has much greater capacity and complexity than the first spaceships that went up into space. And yet, very few of us have ever had any kind of education on how to operate that piece of machinery. So, just like your car, if you wanted to drive and you had never really driven before, someone would show you what button to push, or they would show you how to turn the key, how to push the brake pedal, and then how to put the car in reverse and drive. And with those kinds of things under your belt, you could really do all kinds of things with your life. Same thing with your brain. We're going to show you a few things tonight with letting you know the power of your brain and some of the things that you can do with your brain, and you'll be ready to go and do more things than you could have ever done before. So if we could have the first slide, or the next slide. Thank you. So what I'd like to do tonight is give you a little bit of information about your brain, how it operates, what it's composed of, and then I would like to give you a real life example of what some people have done with their brains and the kinds of changes they saw in a very short time. So next slide. This is a research done by Marion Diamond. She was really the founder of neuroscience. She was born in 1924. She was the first woman who was in this field in any way, shape, or form. And what she did was she took a group of mice and she randomly, and that's an important word, she randomly put them into one of three cages. The first cage is that mouse on the left side. It's one mouse all alone. He had no one to talk to, no one to play with, no toys to play with. He was called the deprived mouse. In the second cage, she would take two mice, so they now had another mouse to talk to, interact with, play with, but they didn't have any toys. And she called this group just the average normal group. And the third cage was a very large cage, had lots and lots of mice. I've seen some of the actual footage that was done on one of the major TV channels that did a special on this show back in the 1960s. And the mice for the third cage actually extended the entire length of the room. All kinds of mice were in there, so lots of mice to interact with and wonderful toys to play with. And she would leave these mice in the cages for about 3 weeks because that's about average lifespan for a mouse. And then next slide, please. She would take those mice and she would put them into a barrel of water. And in that barrel of water, she would put an island. And so when she took the mice from the first cage, those were the deprived mice, she put them in the barrel of water and 100% of them drowned. They could not figure out how to get to the island. Then she took all the mice from the second cage, she put them in the barrel of water, and all the mice from the second cage also drowned. She then took the mice from the third cage, put them all in the barrel of water, and you can see the mouse there on top of the island. All of the mice from the third cage were able to figure out how to swim or some method to get to the island and save themselves. So this was really interesting because the mice had randomly been put into one of three cages. And she found a really very consistent outcome that none of the mice in the first two cages were able to figure out how to get to the island, and yet all of the mice from the third cage were able to get there. Next slide, please. So these are what the mice brain cells look like. She wanted to see what impact being in the cages had been on the mice. And mice brain cells, one reason why mice are used for research so much is that their brain cells are very, very similar to ours. So these are mice brain cells, but your brain cells also very much look like this. And if you look at the one on, it would be your left, I think. It's a much smaller brain cell. And this was taken from the mice from the first cage. She then took a brain cell from the mice in the third cage, which is the one on the other side, which is a much, much larger brain cell. So I'm going to talk about that. But if we'll go to the next slide, I'll talk about a brain cell. So what a thought is an electrical connection between, these are called dendrites, these branches, these kind of look like branches off of a tree. So the red line that you see there is a electrical connection between two brain cells. And that's all a thought is. It's just an electrical connection between two brain cells. So next slide, please. So if we go back to these original brain cells, and if you look at the first brain cell, you'll notice this is from the deprived cage. And you notice it has one kind of long dendrite, and the other ones are very kind of short and stubby. So if you can kind of imagine the other brain cell being a duplicate of the one that's on the left-hand, on the left-hand side there. If you have two brain cells, and we'll just say each of them have one long dendrite, and if you go back, if you think about the picture that I just showed you of what a thought is, a thought being an electrical connection between two dendrites. So if let's just say that this is a mother who came from that first cage, and she has two brain cells that look like this first one on the left, and she has to come up with dinner for her children tonight. So she has to make an electrical connection of a thought, and that thought is, what will she have for dinner? So she might come up with, let's say, mac and cheese. Great. She has mac and cheese for her kids tonight. Tomorrow night, same thing. She still has to come up with something for dinner. She has the same two brain cells, and she comes up with mac and cheese. Same solution to the same problem. The reason why she is feeding her kids mac and cheese tonight for the second time is because she only has two long dendrites to make a connection of a thought to the issue of what will I have for dinner. It isn't because she doesn't care about her children. It isn't because she doesn't love them or she isn't trying to be a good mother. she physically cannot come up with another thought because she only has these very limited dendrites, because when she was in the first cage, she did not exercise her brain and therefore did not grow many dendrites. So this is a really important point, because we often see people who may not put themselves out in life. They may not do things that we think they ought to do. They may not be very resourceful. They may not appear to be very maybe ambitious. There's all kinds of words we could put to that. The reality is that they may not actually have the dendrites, the brain cells, by which to make the connections. So I want you to think about this as you go through as I go through this, think about your own brain cells. And I'd like you to think about any groups that you may work with. So if you work with groups in foreign countries, or you work with groups that, say, in the United States are disadvantaged, um, and we may have certain expectations or wonder certain things. One of the reasons why you may not see them be able to do things, one very obvious reason, may be that they never developed those dendrites by which to make more connections. One of the things I want you to think about as I go through this conversation is that we can develop new dendrites up until the day we die. So no matter how old you are, or where you live, or what you do, you can always continue to develop new dendrites. So if we go to the brain cell on the right-hand side, and we say, this is a mother who went to Ohio State University. She had a nice job. She lives in Worthington, has has a very nice life, and she's going to make dinner tonight. And she has two of these very expanded brain cells. The first night, she too may make mac and cheese, but the second night, she may make, I don't know, whatever, chicken fricassee. And the third night she may make spaghetti. And the fourth night she may make a vegetarian dish. She can make all kinds of connections because in her life she's had the opportunity and the resources to grow many dendrites on each brain cell. So if you look, so one of the things that's really important is that the word neuroplasticity means the ability to change the brain. And the ability to grow more dendrites is an example of neuroplasticity. So we can change the length of our dendrites by changing the length of our dendrites, by having them grow longer. So if you think about exercising your bicep, there you can go to the gym and you can do certain exercises, and within a couple of weeks you can see a difference in your muscles there. Same thing with the length of your dendrites. You can do, if you do various exercises, you can literally grow the length of dendrites. The implication of having longer dendrites means that you can be more responsive in a timely manner. If you look at on the left-hand side where all those little short dendrites are, and if you have a second brain cell with really short dendrites, it takes a longer time for those thoughts to make their connection. And you've talked to that person, you've been with that person, you ask them a question, and you can see that it just takes them a longer period of time to make the connection. Whereas the one on the right, who lived in Worthington and got to exercise her brain, can make connections very quickly. So she can make decisions in a short period of time, as opposed to the person that it may take them a long time to make a decision. We can also change our brain cells by having more dendrites. So the more dendrites we have, the more excuse me, the more dendrites we have, the more connections we can make. So we can come up with more solutions, more insights, more ideas of how to do things. The next one is all of these dendrites have a coating on them, and that coating is called a myelin sheath. So if you'd go to the next slide, please. So if you see this red circle here, this is the myelin sheath that is coated on all of your dendrites. And this myelin sheath is kind of a sticky substance that it can, when you're younger, it's very supple and it helps the electrical current to move through your dendrites. As you get older, that can begin to dry up. And as it dries up, it's kind of like arthritis of the brain. So, you've seen people that have arthritis in the knuckles of their hand, and their hands are kind of bent or curved, and they can't really straighten. Their hands are fixed. If you think of your hands being fixed with arthritis, and you kind of lose that ability, that plasticity to move your knuckles. That same thing happens in the brain as the myelin begins to dry up. You lose the ability to be responsive, to be adaptable. So, by not exercising your brain, that will cause the myelin to dry up. So, if you go to the next slide, please. So the more neuroplasticity we have, in that we can grow longer dendrites, we can grow more supple dendrites, we can grow longer dendrites, we can have dendrites that can be more responsive, enables us to be more resourceful in our thinking, more effective in how we problem solve and how we approach life, and be able to come up with more solutions, better solutions in less time. So next slide, please. So this is my most valuable slide that I have. This is a very rare thing. You probably will never get to see one of these again. This is a picture of the first budding of brain cells. These are little buds of brain cells that are starting to form. And if we would go to the next slide, this is those brain cells after they have been exercised. This was actually done on some people, and what they had them do was, this is really a before and after picture. The first slide you saw was before they began exercising, before they began running. And this is a month after they were running. You can see how many more brain cells have begun to form in their brain. So it isn't the running that is so significant here. What this is telling you is anything that you go and do that is new or different for you. So if you've been a runner for 40 years, that's something that you've already developed your capacity, your brain cells for. But if you've never gone running, And you do that for a month, you can see how many new brain cells you can begin to accumulate in a very short period of time. So the implication of this is by just doing anything new, doing anything different. So that could be you drive to work every day the same way. Just start going a different way to work. Just start sitting in a different chair in your living room and starting to see things differently. Doing very simple things can actually begin to trigger lots of new brain cells forming in your brain. Next slide, please. So we know now that we all have the capacity to form new brain cells, and that we can do that in a very short period of time. What I want to do here is tell you a piece of research that was done. And this is a wonderful piece of research. This was done on some men, and all of these men were 72 years old. And they put them in two groups. There were 22 men in each group. And they took them to two different houses in Maryland. And the men that were in the control group had a nice 5-day retreat. They just hung out, watched a little TV, went for a walk, just kind of had a very nice vacation. Next slide, please. The other 22 men were taken to a different house where they too stayed for 5 days. The thing that was different about the second group is that they were told to speak, act, and behave as though it was 1959. They were not supposed to talk about, oh, remember in 1959. They were to act as though they were in 1959. So if I could have the next slide. So before they began this experiment, both groups had a great deal of testing that was done. They tested their height, their weight, their flexibility, their strength. They did all kinds of blood tests. They had all kinds of specialists come in and measure all kinds of things as a baseline. Next slide, please. And during those 5 days, the men who were in the special group watched TV and movies from the 1950s. They listened to music like Perry Como, Nat King Cole. They talked about Castro's rise in Cuba. They watched sports about Mickey Mantle and all the sports figures from that time. So they dressed like 1950, 1959. Everything in the house was exactly the way people decorated their houses in that time period. They ate the food at that time, so it was probably hot dogs and hamburgers, potato chips. Next slide, please. They always had to speak in present time and to actually behave as though they were living in 1959. Next slide, please. So at the end of these 5 days, they again tested their height, their flexibility, their weight, their strength, and these are some of the findings that they found. Next slide, please. The men actually became taller, actually quite a bit taller. The reason why they became taller is they actually changed their posture and were standing in a much more erect way. They found that their joints in their hands, their feet, their joints in general became much more flexible. Their fingers became longer. The reason why their fingers became longer was because their arthritis was greatly reduced in that 5-day period. Next slide, please. Every single person, all 22 men, had an improvement in their eyesight. They had an improvement in their hearing, and they had an improvement in their memory. Next slide, please. The most significant one was their mental cognition improved overall a total of 63% in 5 days. They have never found this kind of improvement on any other experience, that much improvement. Next slide, please. So by the end of the study, as one man said, I was playing touch football with men who literally laid down their canes to play. So many of these men had walked in with canes, serious arthritis, all kinds of disabilities. And by the end, they were playing touch football. Next slide, please. This is one of the men, and how he felt by the end of the 5 days. They literally had changed their bodies because of the way they had thought. They began to actually think of themselves being 22 years younger. They talked like they were 22 years younger. Their environment told them they were 22 years younger. They acted like they were 22 years younger. And as a result, their bodies responded, and all the biological testing they did indicated that their bodies actually had improved within 5 days. Next slide, please. So by changing your mind, you can change your brain by exercising it. You can shape your mind in the same way that an athlete can shape their body. And with the Olympics going on, it's a really interesting time. We see how they have these incredible bodies, and they can change their bodies to do all kinds of things. We too, if we were to exercise our bodies, could change them significantly. In the same way, we can change our brains. Next slide. Your brain can be exercised and developed just as you exercise your body. You can exercise your brain. By exercising your brain, you can impact the skills and abilities that you have. So you can think about, well, what if you added some new repertoire of skills, or a new repertoire of vocabulary, or a new repertoire of abilities? How would your life be enhanced? What would you want to put in place of what you already have? By exercising your brain in specific ways, you can increase significantly your likelihood for success, because you can increase literally the dendrites in your brain. Next slide, please. So what are the implications for you? I think that there are 2 implications I'd like for you to think about. I'd like you to think about, what kinds of things would you like to do to change your brain? In what ways would you like your brain to be changed? And also, I'd like you to think about the people that you help in the different activities that you may do through Rotary or other activities that you're involved with. When you're helping other people, you may be helping them to have some warm clothes, or to grow some food, or to get sources of water. But what you're actually doing is beginning to change their brain. You're beginning to increase their dendrites. So, how you help them will actually change what kind of thinking they can begin to do because you can help them increase the dendrites that they have to work with. Next slide, please. So, in conclusion, I'd like for you tonight, when this session is over, to think about your brain is a result of the things that you have done and the things that you have thought about. I'd like for you to then begin to think about what you would like to do in order to change your brain so that you can do more of those things that really bring you joy and happiness, and how you want to change the brains of the people around you. Next slide, please. So I'm from Sarasota. This is where the Ringling Circus came. They changed, it was a tiny little shipping village, and the Ringling came and made Sarasota ultimately a wonderful metropolis for all kinds of arts. So I chose a picture of a clown to represent being from Sarasota. If you would go to the next slide, please. If you take that picture of that clown and you put it on its side, you see that we have more than just a clown. We have, if we're going to have a circus, we got to have a tent. We have a dog with a ball on his nose. We have a unicyclist. Up at the top, we have a string of elephants. If we're going to have a circus, we got to have elephants. We have a flamethrower. Over to the right, I think it's kind of hard to see, but we actually have the ballerinas riding on top of the horse. So you thought I just had a clown, but when I looked at it from a different perspective, I actually had the entire circus. Next slide, please. So when we go back to our original perspective now, after having looked at it from a different perspective, I hope that you can see the clown and much more. That you can see the unicyclist and you can see the dog with the ball on his nose, etc. So I hope from having been with this presentation to think about your brain a little bit more, how you've used your brain, probably where all your dendrites might be, what ways you would like to begin to add those dendrites. So, and looking at it a little bit differently, what begins to happen, next slide, please. Shift happens. So I hope that this has been helpful to take a quick look at your brain and begin to think about you have much more ability to create your resource than what you know, and you can do that actually pretty easy. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane. This is wonderful. You got me thinking. Wow.
Yes.
Yes. And I want to take action.
All right, go for it. Go for
Yes.
it.
Yes. It's going to be an interesting evening for me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you all. Appreciate being here.
This was wonderful. Thank you.
Do some of you have any questions for Diane?
I think I'm going to
Questions?
replay the program to my staff when the recording's up. I just think this was magnificent about how you can do things affirmatively to change.
Thank you.
You see how you work.
Well, and I think that a number of important things, but one of the things is how fast within 5 days those men totally changed their brains and their bodies.
Well, I can't gripe at my dad now for having a steady diet of riflemen, black and whites, and only listening to the Beach Boys. So I guess he's onto something.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Well, Diane, have you got any particular things that you've heard over the years or learned are best ways to stimulate your brain? What kind of things, like learning a language or something like that?
Well, learning a language is one of the things that people, is always on the list, and it's certainly a good thing. But what the point I really wanted to make here is doing something different. It's really doing something different. So, literally, by driving a different way to work, you start to see things differently. You see things you didn't encounter before. Reading a different newspaper than what you may normally read, or doing an athletic thing, that you haven't done before. You don't have to be a pro, but it is just the engagement of doing something different. So I think with working with Rotary, you guys are always coming up with new things, new projects that people are doing. It's a real perfect example of people getting exposed to new ways and beginning to think about things in different ways. As you think about it through the eyes of the people that you're helping, and as you think about the things that you help them with, all of those things will help change your brain. All right.
Diane, how would you say that music affects the brain?
Music can be extremely powerful. Music can very quickly bring a very harmonious operation to the brain. Certain kinds of music are extremely effective in putting the brain, we call them different levels of activity, can be, they can help you think in much better ways. Music can also make you crazy. And if you have a teenager and you listen to that music for more than 3 minutes, you're ready to kill somebody. So it can work. It's the music that you select. 60 beats a minute is really the most harmonious for the brain because that's your heartbeat. So that enables your heart and your brain to get in sync and operate as one.
Have there been any mice studies?
There actually has. I had a woman. I I had told this story to, and she had a son who had to do a science project. And so he did. He did the 3 cages and he had them listen to different music. And the mice in the second cage, he played heavy metal for. And oh, I know, he was teaching them how to go through a maze to get food at the end. And so the mice in the third cage who listened to some Bach and some Beethoven learned to do that much quicker than the other 2 cages. The mice in the second group never got to the food at all because they became so violent they killed each other.
Wow.
And so, you think of these kids listening to some of this music that literally is very agitating with headphones all day long, and then you hear about some of the issues that they get into trouble. There very much could be a correlation there because music goes directly into the brain, so it affects it instantaneously.
Wow.
So we have a lot of control over what our lives are like.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess that comes under the heading of good and bad news. So choose wisely, you're saying.
That is it. Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
I have a comment. I'm working out with a few friends, and I didn't know. I'm going to share this tomorrow. I'm their trainer, so I often look for ways of doing things differently. Even for me, because I mean, I have to work out with 2 different groups of people every week. So to keep it interesting,
right.
I have different um, uh, trainers along my Facebook feed, and I'm taking their stuff and I'm implementing them as some of the stuff that we do. So I am generating new brain cells here.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Fascinating. I'm
Now,
going to share this tomorrow.
so what I want to tell you all is your brains are now different than they were an hour ago
I
because
love
you've
it.
all learned something tonight. Now,
That's
in
it.
order to maintain that, you need to either, in the next 24 hours, you need to either write it down or tell somebody or do some, within the next 24 hours, you need to do something to jog your memory of the things that we talked about that are important. And then you need to do that a week from now. So what you're doing is shifting from short-term to long-term memory.
Thank you. This is great.
So keep repeating to the people you're working with.
Awesome.
So Diane, you often hear people talk about right brain, left brain.
Or no brain.
Yes, you hear a lot about that too.
Yes,
Talk a
so
little
your
bit about
question.
right brain, left brain.
So I'm sorry, what?
Can you tell us a little bit about right brain, left brain, and which side controls what?
Okay. So your left brain is linear, logical, orderly, sequential. So think of an accountant. An accountant deals with numbers, an accountant puts those numbers in certain order, a linear order. So that's what the left brain deals with. The right brain, so specifics, details. Right brain deals with big picture, it's the only place where we can think about new things. It deals with the whole, it deals with innovation. It's the part that deals with people. Left brain deals with things. So people are right brain in dealing. Our right brain is engaged in dealing with people. Our left brain is engaged in dealing with things. Now, in addition to left and right brain, and we use both of those all the time. We all are born with a propensity or a preference of one or the other. So, a left brain, a person who is born with a propensity for left brain will probably like a job where they do things in a sequential, a precise, linear kind of format. But they can certainly expand their right brain by engaging with other people, by doing something new and creative. So they're, in today's world. And one way to kind of think about this is the world used to be very consistent. So if I was a farmer and I lived in a small town, I probably got married at 1920 to my high school sweetheart. We lived in the same town. I farmed the same way my parents farmed. We knew all the same people in church our whole lives. Our lives were very, very consistent. And it was important to be consistent because in farming, we knew how to increase predictability of success by that consistency. And the world today, and it used to, if you think, I'll make this short, Procter and Gamble used to pride itself on it made the same product for 100 years. It was predictable. Today, a company would never use that logo of we've been doing the same thing for 100 years. It's all about being new, being innovative, being the latest on the curve, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to see that increase 100-fold, and I'm not even being exaggerating on that, in the next 24 months with AI, literally. So the ability to adapt, to do new things, to keep up to pace on all of that, is really forcing people to move into that right brain in order just to survive. You know, that's just kind of the way it is. I can be very right brain, but if I don't have engage my left brain, I won't have order. So I'll end up with chaos. So we really, each of us are always finding a balance that works with us. The interesting thing is that if you're married to the same person you have always been, um, one of you is going to be more left brain and one of you is going to be more right brain. 79% of the marriages are like that. And we do that intuitively because we marry our opposite literally to make us whole. With the two brains, we hit all the bases, okay? So that's kind of the other part I want you to think about is we also have two brains that are on top of each other. So my left and right brain think about things, and on the top of my left and right brain thinks about things. The bottom of my left and right brain takes action on things. So in my left brain, I can think about details and I can take action on details. In my right brain, I can think about innovative ideas and I can take action on those ideas. And we all have preferences, but we really are bouncing around all four quadrants. We come in with a preference, our environment impacts us, and how we live our lives really shape where we are comfortable and playing in those different hemispheres. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's helpful. I think it certainly tells you why you may be attracted to certain kinds of friendships and find others awkward.
Yes, and what happens is you marry your opposite, but your friends are more like you.
Mhm.
Okay, your friends are who you go and watch the football game with, all right? And your mate is your opposite because somebody has to do the taxes and somebody has to invite the friends over for social.
Mhm.
And so you really, in a marriage, now, if you're in a, if you get married later in life and you don't have kids and you both have careers, you tend to marry your best friend, but because you can hire out the taxes, you know, or hire out, you know. So, but yeah, so, but what happens is we subconsciously look for our opposite, and then we get married and we try and make them just like us. And that we find through marriage that that doesn't work. And we don't want them to be like us because they complete us. If we didn't have that completion, it would just be us, which would be limiting.
I think you've made a lot of people smile, Diane.
Maybe some spouses anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's fascinating,
Absolutely fascinating.
just incredible.
So the thing to think about is it is incredibly malleable, incredibly malleable. Every single thought, and you do 70 to 90,000 thoughts a day. Every single thought shapes those dendrites.
Hmm.
So we feel like oftentimes that our brain runs us, but we really run the brain. And what we need to start thinking about is how can we be intentional about shaping that brain to serve us in the way that we want.